Welcome to what I hope will be a review of The Carpet Makers and not just me gibbering wildly about how amazing this book is and how everyone should read it, because this book is amazing and I think that many people should read it. Right, so The Carpet Makers was hard to get, and thank you, Beck, for your amazing internet search and recover skills. I had wanted to read this for a long time, couldn't get it anywhere, couldn't find it anywhere. Let's just look at that illustration, because that's pretty amazing illustration. Yeah, anyway, Beck found it for me. I was very grateful. I was a little bit scared. I'd heard so much about this book, and mostly it was very, very good and very, very exciting. And you know, when everyone's talked up a book to you, like Solaris, Stanislaw Lem, and you read it and you are disappointed. I didn't think I was going to be disappointed with this one, but I waited for my moment, shall we say, before I picked it up. And it exceeded expectations. Totally exceeded expectations. So, The Carpet Makers by Andreas Eschbach. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. I'm probably not. With an introduction by Orson Scott Card. Now, the reason we have this book is probably largely because of Orson Scott Card. So it turns out that it was first written in 1995. And sometime after that, Orson Scott Card was in a conference of some kind in France, and he'd heard about it. He wanted to read it, but this author only wrote in German. And OSC, like myself, doesn't read German. So he ended up taking a short story that was the basis of the novel, maybe this novel, I think it was this novel, back home with him to a friend he knew who translated it for him. And the translator is Doryl Jensen. He was so impressed by it, his publishers, which are Tor, was so impressed by it, and this is indeed a Tor publication, that it ended up being published in English. In terms of the writing, it is amazingly beautiful. And since I don't read German, I can only assume that both the writing and the translation play to each other perfectly, because this is an almost seamless book in so many ways, and that's kind of rare with translations, so I'm actually very impressed by that. From the first, my very first thoughts about this were how exceptionally well written it was, and how the translation must also be as well written. This, I think, is a very memorable book. I have a poor memory and I forget books, but I don't think I'll be able to forget this one. I think the beauty, the delicacy, the richness of the writing, the way it gives you just enough of the sphere that you're reading in to be totally immersed and fascinated, but you're never so much that you feel like you know all about the world or the characters. The slow build-up. So the writing style to me seemed almost incandescently beautiful. It was absolutely amazing. There's a delicate touch to the writing that almost comes across as diffidence, and this delicacy was a perfect vehicle for the casual brutality and uncaring nature of the universe and most of the people in it that comes through in this book as it's revealed section by section. So the writing on its own would have grabbed me, but the plot, everything about it just seemed perfect. So early on, I seemed to see a theme, because in this book, you see the world through the eyes of characters, and they can be quite widely separated. Bad things happen to a lot of them. Many of the characters don't go all the way through. You'll see them once, maybe twice. Maybe you'll see the world once through their eyes. You may later see them through someone else's eyes. That sort of writing can often be very patchy, but in this case, it's nothing like patchy. It's very, very continuous. It feels very organic. And for someone who normally prefers a character or a theme to be continuous throughout, it's amazing how continuous I found this slow evolution of everything from person to person. So, how can I say enough about it without saying too much? Because I absolutely don't want to spoiler this in any way. I went into it pretty cold, and I think most people who enjoy science fiction or really beautiful writing should read this. And I think it's probably better if they go into it cold as well. So, the first part of this is very much world building. It's a light touch, and it starts with the planet of the carpet makers. No surprise that there's carpet makers, because you know the title and the hype. The level to which the world building happens is quite unique, and because it's very point of view and it's very almost narrow, though linear, you see it so evocatively from a personal point of view, but it's never over-explained. Nothing is ever over-explained in this book. You get just enough explanation, and often not quite enough explanation. It's really great. Really well done. So the planet of the carpet makers, they know there are only one planet in the Empire. It's a pre-industrialized, rigorously classed and fairly impoverished, by the sound of it to the reader, agricultural type system. There's no interstellar commerce, no cultural exchange, except for the completed carpets, which allegedly go to another planet in another star system, endlessly distance away, where the Emperor lives, and all these carpets are for the Emperor, and it is an act of duty, even worship to the Emperor, to make them, as is every other part of society as well. And we see a little bit of other parts of society, though you're not always sure where you're seeing them fit in. So the planet of the carpet makers, very arid, and there's a very rigid class and social system. It's based upon emperor worship and class segregation. So the class segregation, the carpet makers are right at the top, and everyone looks up to them because they're making these carpets for the emperor's palace. But the rigidity of the religion is quite unique. So the emperor worship reminded me a little bit of Roman pre-Christian empire worship, where whoever the Caesar was a god, etc., etc., and you had low levels of disobedience. But I don't think it was ever quite as rigid as this. People can basically get stoned to death for questioning the emperor, and that's very much part of the plot. So that was the world building that you get at the start. Now, around about page 90, I think it was, we get visitors from space, and we hear a bit more about the Empire. The Empire has the Empire had a revolution? Has the Empire maybe resigned? And we find out a little bit more about this particular corner of the galaxy, the Genera galaxy. It had been lost. It wasn't on star charts, so it was unknown, and a small scout ship comes there to investigate. And at this point, we still really don't know what's happening, but we start off with this almost fantasy layout of the planet of the carpet makers, and then we jump straight to interstellar scouts and a completely interstellar, galaxy-wide, universe-wide, maybe even empire, with an emperor who is very, very old. He's been there a long time. He's not old, he's young, he's vital, he's dynamic, but he's been around for a long time, and there's no indication that he's going to die anytime soon. So we've got a level of mechanical sophistication, we've got a level of interstellar commerce and society, and we've obviously got anti-aging drugs and biology down to a T. I like that skipping between the two, and the way in which the Empire and the characters in it are built is so very subtle. So we start with the very first character we meet is a carpet maker, and we have a sort of immersion into his experience of making carpets. And these carpets are made by one individual only, and he'll make about one carpet per lifetime. He will then sell it, and the money from the sale of that carpet will sustain his son and his son's wives and daughters, while he makes the carpet for the next generation. So it's this incredibly well-established, long-lasting society that takes so much on the absolute faith that the world will not change, that the emperor will always last, and so will the empire. The description of the carpet making is fascinating and a little bit gross or grotesque almost. I think perhaps it's not entirely unique that this should come from a German author. I remember reading, I think it might have been in The Turn of the Screw or one of those really old fiction books, where it was a custom for German women to make a little pillow and stuff it with their own hair as a gift to a sweetheart. So it felt a little bit Germanic in that sense. And the whole thing has a social feeling that is so different to the mainstay of science fiction, and I really loved that too. So we start with Ostervan. Ostervan is an older carpet maker. He's got 2 wives. I think it's 2 wives at this stage, and he's had 5 daughters, and that gives him a number of colours of hair with which to build his carpet, which is entirely built from the hairs of his womenfolk, wives and daughters. And we also find out that every carpet maker can only have 1 son. We find out what happens to the sons that don't make the grade. And that's really the beginning and the end of the book in a way. About 100 pages in, I was starting to go, well, I'd heard that this was a mystery. I wasn't seeing the mystery at that point, but in actual fact there is a mystery. There are mysteries about the carpets, and that mystery builds slowly throughout the book, from the outside looking into the planet or planets of the carpet makers, to the mystery of what actually is going on and how it came to be, the slow reveal of the solution. And actually the reason behind the carpet making was way beyond my wildest dream could have possibly conceived. It took me entirely by surprise. The reveal of it was fascinating, and by the time, though it was so wild that I don't think you could actually imagine it unless you're Andreas Eschbach, by the time the mystery is solved for you, it feels organic and real, and all the tiny bits fit together so perfectly. But I defy anyone to foresee that coming unless you've already Googled it. It was great. It was odd. The method of the reveal was odd. The final solution was bizarre, and the whole thing was thoroughly engrossing. And it ends with another carpet maker, Ostvan, and it ends with the last page is basically a description of him carpet making. So just as the beginning is one carpet making, the end is another carpet making. It's one of the most successful endings to this kind of galaxy-wide sagas that I can imagine, and it's beautiful and it's evocative. This was so not a fast read. I read fast. This I didn't read fast because I became so absorbed and so invested in the characters that I needed breaks between chapters. I had to stop. I couldn't keep on reading. I had to keep stopping to absorb it. And the level of investment that this author can force upon the reader, the character that is in one small chapter, like the flute master, the story of the flutes, every single thing is like this small gemstone conceived out of goodness knows what, perfectly faceted, perfectly presented. I was so impressed by this book. I remember reading somewhere, and I can't remember where, it was on the interweb somewhere when I was kind of prepping to find this book, I think, that at the time when OSC talked to the author about it in the conference, there were a lot of people who not only thought this was the best science fiction writer out there, not only the best German literary author out there, but just the best author anywhere. And I have to say that this book stands out as unique in my reading experience, almost unique, if not actually unique. No other book, similar book springs to mind right now, at how word by word, paragraph by paragraph, page by page, second by second, it is such a perfect creation. I actually have nothing to criticize about it at all, and that's pretty rare. I can usually tear a book to shreds if I was annoyed. There was nothing about this book that annoyed me. There was a lot that made me sad. There was a lot that made me invested. I didn't even regret it ending. With a really good book, sometimes you don't want it to end. Now, I will admit that 2/3 through, I found myself slowing down a bit and just taking my time over every single bit, just relishing it till the full. But I didn't regret it ending, because the ending was so immaculate that it couldn't have continued, and it shouldn't have continued. It is so perfectly, it is such a perfect gem in itself. And every time I say read good books, I think I probably mean read this good book, or read books that you find as good as this. I won't reveal anything about the actual plot that could be a spoiler. I think you need to read it. I think everyone who likes science fiction should read this. I just think it's an amazing book. I am very grateful that it was written in my lifetime. I am very grateful to the amazing translator, again, Doryl Jensen, who made it such a spectacularly beautiful reading experience in English. This is kind of an ultimate book that I will certainly never let go of it, and I will remember it, and I will reread it. I've already reread a couple of segments. I finished it yesterday, and I've already picked it up to reread tiny snippets of it. Because every reading experience is like reading a poem. It's quite utterly gorgeous in itself. Anyway, I knew I'd be raving about how marvelous this book is. It's marvelous. Read it. If you didn't like it, don't tell me. I don't want to know. But otherwise, comment. No, comment about anything. Comment on anything you like, right?